everybody, it's Ian the Off Kilter Crafter. I hope you're having a great day today. Today I'm going to be using Pantone's 2018 Color of the Year, which is Ultraviolet. Again, in another card, I just can't get away from it. I love it so much. I love the color. And if you didn't check out last week's video, make sure to click up in the iCards. I use the Pantone Color of the Year in a different card, but today's card it uses that color and it uses some watercolor, and I don't know how else to describe it, but just a lot of fun to create this one. So let's go ahead and check out how I put it together. To get the card started, I'm going to start off with my Canson XL watercolor paper, and I'm going to use some Distress ink in Wilted Violet. This is most of the time what you use to re-ink your pads, but today I'm going to use the ink straight from the canister. I'm going to put it out here on my craft mat, and I'm going to paint the background using just the plain ink. I will go ahead and tape down my watercolor paper to a clipboard. I wish I had something better, but this is what I have right now that is water and heat resistant, so that's what we're going to use. So let me go ahead and tape this down and we'll start painting it up. Now when I taped everything down, I left a little thin border where hopefully it won't, the ink won't get onto. I wanted that border to be preserved because this panel is cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so I'm just going to tape this straight down onto my card base, and I want that nice kind of, it's not going to be a jagged edge, but it's going to be a raw edge, and I want that on my card, so that's why I decided to use such a small border around the edges. I'm going to go ahead and take some of my Distress ink, and I'm going to squirt it out right onto my craft sheet. And then I'm going to mix it with a little bit of water, and we will go ahead and start painting it on. I'm also using a Cheap Joe's Art Stuff white nylon round brush. This is 14, it looks like. Very soft brush. This is what you're wanting to use for watercolor. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and wet my paper down. I want the colors to move a lot whenever I put it onto the surface of my paper, so I'm just going to go ahead and cover the entire page with water, make sure it's nice and saturated. Now that I've gotten it wet, I'm going to take some water and just mix it in with my ink because I want to water it down a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and start painting it on. Now that I've gotten my first layer, I'm going to go ahead and heat set it to dry it, and that way I can put a second layer on top of it. Alright, now that it is mostly dry, I'm going to go ahead and take my spritzer bottle and add a couple of water droplets into my hand and then onto, I can never do this quite right. It always seems like I get one really big one right in the center no matter what I do, but that's okay. So anyways, I'm going to drop this water onto my card panel, and that will pull up some of the purple color, make it a little lighter. It almost acts like a bleach whenever you're working with Distress ink. And remember, Distress oxides are going to react a little differently. They're actually going to turn a chalky white, and whenever you use Distress ink, it pulls some of that ink back up and makes it look a little, it's not as whitewashed as the Distress oxides, but it's still going to have a almost similar effect. It's hard to describe. Distress oxides are their own creature and hard to describe sometimes, but I'm just going to move this around a little bit, just like that. You can see the colors of purple, or the pool of colors forming pools of purple, if I can say that. There we go. And then I'm just going to pull this up using my paper towel and dry it one more time. One of the reasons that I use a heat gun whenever I'm working with a watercolor panel is sometimes it helps loosen the stickiness of the tape whenever you're ready to pull it back off. Also, another important tip, when you're pulling it off, don't pull it from off the paper onto the paper. Make sure that you're always pulling away from the paper at a pretty steep angle. It's almost like vinyl where you want to make sure that you're pulling at almost a 45-degree angle, so that way the tape, in theory, will not pull your paper up. Alright, so there is the card base. I really like how that looks. I love the raw edges around the edge, and it looks like I got everything almost perfectly even, and I love that because that doesn't happen very often. Next, I'm going to move to my circle dies. These are Simon Says Stamp Circle Stitched, I almost said stitched rectangles. I use that one so much that I'm used to saying it. Stitched circle dies from Simon Says Stamp, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and line them up as closely to centered as possible, so that way I can tape them all together. When I tape them all together, that will hopefully, if I'm doing this correctly, get it so that all the paper cuts out at once and I don't have to run it through each time I want to do another circle. You'll see better what I mean in just a moment when I pull out the die cutting machine. Now this may not be perfect, but it's at least going to be close enough that your eyeball hopefully won't see it too well if it is off aligned a little bit. I did go ahead and keep it on. This is a piece of magnetic, it's actually meant for whiteboard, so you write using whiteboard markers on this side and throw it on a whiteboard. But I used that to store them in, and it makes it easier for when you're trying to put those pieces onto your storage pouch, so that way they don't get lost. I don't know if I mentioned or not, but I'm using some Post-it note tape to keep everything together. It's low-tack tape, so that way you can undo them easily without making a mess. Next, I'm going to place these onto my Cuttlebug cutting plates. I have the magnetic plate underneath, so that way I can cut out some circles and not have it move while I'm running it through my die cut machine. So I'm going to cut out a couple of circles and get that going. Alright, now that I've die cut both some purple circles and some white ones, I'm going to go ahead and start layering them up onto my card. Not exactly sure how this is going to look. It's going to be kind of organic and just go with the flow. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for a minute with the circles. I want to go ahead and add my sentiment, which is going to be down over here in the lower right-hand corner of my card, so I don't want to go too much farther. You'll notice I did pop up some of the circles on some foam circles and add a little dimension to it. I think that really helps it out a lot, brings it a little more 3 dimensions. So let's go ahead and work on the sentiment, and we'll go ahead and put that onto the card and finish that up. So I've grabbed my stamp, which is from the Sweet Stamp Shop, and it says Life is Sweet. I'm going to use some scrap paper, some white scrap paper. This is just regular 60 or 80 pound cardstock from, I believe it's from Recollections. I'm also going to be using my Tonic Tim Holtz Stamp Platform today, and since we're using some cling stamps, some clear cling stamps, I want to go ahead and flip it around so that this says clear. You may not be able to see that on camera, but I'll flip it over, put it onto the clear side, and I'm going to be using some Distress ink, which doesn't stamp very well, so that's why I'm choosing to use the stamp platform, so that way I make sure I get a good impression. As you can see, I had to do that 3 times to get this impression as clean as it is, and it's still not perfect, but it's at least good enough for what I want today. Alright, I'm now going to cut this out using my paper trimmer, and then we'll get it all squared up. This edge is not a square edge, so I have to keep reminding myself to use the square edge in order to get a good cut, so let's do that. And then we'll get it all cut up and ready to go. I'm going to use my We Are Memory Keepers Crop-A-Dial Corner Chomper. I can never say that name very correctly, but basically I'm going to chomp off a 1/4 inch of each corner. It's sometimes hard to use this because you can rock it in and out, but try to use, there you go. So try to use it as best as you can. Try to find that sweet spot that chomps the corner in a nice place. I know that doesn't make much sense, but trust me, if you have one of these, you understand. Alright, before I go any further, I've realized that I've added some 3D elements, and it's always a lot harder to tape it onto the front of my card base whenever I've put on some 3D elements. So before I go any further at all, I'm going to go ahead and add some strong adhesive. This is Tombow Extreme Adhesive onto the back of my watercolor piece, onto the 110-pound cardstock. It's Nino Solar White. It's my favorite type of cardstock to use for card bases because it is so incredibly thick and nice and strong, perfect for card bases. Y'all understand. Alright, now that I've put that on there, now I can put this on, and I want to put it over here, but as you can see, I'm overlapping that one a little bit, so it looks like I may have to double up my sticky foam. Alright, so I've gotten my adhesive foam on the back of my panel, and now I'm just going to add a little bit of adhesive to the front of this part, so that way it sticks, hopefully, nicely, and attaches. So that way it's all nice and stable. In theory, probably not in practice, but we'll see. Hopefully I won't be mailing this card through the mail. Hopefully I will be hand delivering this one. There we go. I think that looks really, really great. Do I want to add another circle somewhere? Maybe. I don't know, it's pretty saturated as it is right now. Alright, I better stop here before it gets too overcrowded and just too noisy and crazy, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and stop right here, and here's today's card. So it looks like I'm going to be doing a little bit of a mini series using that ultraviolet color because I have some other ideas for different cards, and hopefully I can come up with some great creations for y'all. Also guys, I want to see what you create using the color ultraviolet, so make sure to post them up on my Facebook page so that way I can see them. If you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. That lets YouTube know that you liked my video, and then we'll hopefully share it across YouTube land. Also, while you're clicking that thumbs up button, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that subscribe button and then hit the bell icon to get great updates every time I post a new video or go live. And like I said, you can check me out over on my social media pages. Those are all listed down in the description below. And yes, for the record, I am starting to grow out my facial hair. I've never done it before and wanted to see what would happen. I mean, I know what will happen. I'll get a beard and a mustache. It's not like I'm gonna turn into an octopus or anything, but I wanted to see what I look like with facial hair. Alright guys, I hope you have a great day, and remember, keep it off kilter. Bye!